Looks beautiful where you're at right now. Where are you, at a park?
Yeah, I'm in the front yard.
Okay.
Yeah, in Iowa. It's a nice day. Mhm.
All right. So we're gonna get started. Everybody's, this is like the talk of the town right now. I got to talk to John Ranke last night, and
Mhm.
that was a very, very interesting interview. He had some things to say um, about Doc that we'll talk about a little bit later. But what can you tell us about you? Tell us where Barbara grew up and what it was like for you.
Well, I grew up in Iowa, in Ames, Iowa, um, where I live now. And I was, I don't know. I went to Tigers when I was 19 because I wasn't the best student. I didn't want to go to college yet. I'm in college now, but yeah, so that was it. And then I stayed at Tigers until I was like 26. And then that's when I met my husband, who actually went to high school with me, but he was way cooler than me, like way cooler than me. So I didn't know him, but I came back from my grandfather's funeral and met him then. And then yeah, we ended up um, hitting it off, and then I ended up leaving Tigers with him. So yeah.
So, what I found really interesting about your story is we actually have some similarities. So, we talked a little bit before we started this interview that we're the same age, but it
Hmm.
looks like when you moved to go pursue, moving in at the reserve or the zoo, whatever you want to call it, with
Hmm.
Doc in 1999, you said it was correct.
Yep. Hmm.
That was the same time that my parents actually were going through a divorce at that time, and I believe that you said that your parents were going through a
Hmm.
divorce at that time. So did
Right.
that impact your decision? Because I know how that impacted me, and even at 19, that's a very awkward and hard thing to go through.
Well, I think it might have had an impact more on um, their reaction. Like they were busy with their own thing. I think if my dad hadn't been really upset when he dropped me off at Tigers, he might have been more like reluctant to leave, I think, because it was pretty obvious from the get go that it was like kind of a weird place. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, so that might have, and also, when your parents get divorced, doesn't matter what age you are, like you never go home again in the same respect, right? I mean,
Right.
it changes forever. And, that's fine now, but at the time I was like, well, I don't really want to be there either at this point. So,
It's hard too. It's hard to see your parents move on, uh,
hmm.
and then some of them establish relationships. And at least in my
Hmm.
case, I felt like I kind of got pushed back to the back burner a little bit, at least with my father. Uh,
Hmm.
that made it hard. So yeah, I feel for you. I just thought that was interesting. I was reading that
Yeah.
about you, and I'm like, wow, okay, we're the same age, and we went through what I consider to be a pretty traumatic experience. I mean, even in your late
Hmm.
teens, um, you know. So yeah.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
what intrigued you about Doc? What made you reach out to him and say this guy's cool and I want to join his zoo?
Well, the fact that so I was a vegetarian. I'm still a vegetarian, and that was a requirement. It wasn't like a hardship for me. I was like, great, this was perfect. I would love to live with everybody being vegetarian. And I was into transcendental meditation, so I
Hmm.
was into yoga. I mean, it just seemed like tailor made for me. So really, that was the only place I called, or tried to get in with was Vagabond's place. So yeah, that's why him, I guess.
What was your first day like there? Tell us about when you arrived.
Let me think. Okay, so the like after I got my stuff in the trailer where I was staying, I think the first day I think I went upstairs for food. Like he had like rice and lentils up there, and pretty much right away. Like that was his board. He's like, you'll get room and board, but the board is just rice and lentils, and you have to buy anything else that you eat separately. Anyway, so and then we got into a truck and we drove to Virginia, basically like that. I think it was the first day, um, with like a few other people,
So the
and we
weather
did. What's that?
To the Renaissance Fair, right?
To the Renaissance Fair, yeah.
Yeah.
And I loved the Renaissance Fair. It was great. It was like 3 months. And no, he at the time when we left, he was like, and we're gonna go for like just pack for like 3 days for a weekend. And then he left me there for like 3 months. So, but I didn't mind. I had a blast at the Renaissance Fair. And if that hadn't happened, I don't know, maybe wouldn't have stayed. I really enjoyed it. That culture, um, a lot. So
We
it's
have we have an awesome Renaissance Fair. I live close to Hershey, Pennsylvania, and we have a really the Pennsylvania Renaissance Fair is awesome.
mm-hmm.
So yeah, I understand the vibe and the environment and the communal aspect to it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and it's different to be like a Rennie, like somebody who works for the Renaissance Fair, than to be like a patron. Like, I don't know. It's like a subculture of people who are kind of smart and kind of weird and misfits, but there's no leader. It's just a loose confederation. Do you know what I mean? And
Sure.
that works. That works on a social level. It's really healthy. People take care of each other. I don't know. I really admired that. And I thought, well, I can get used to this, but that's not the way that Tigers operates, unfortunately. So yeah,
Did you have tigers with you? Was that what was your purpose being at the Renaissance Fair?
we did like a Beastmaster show, like the Tale of the Tiger is what it was called. So we dressed up like Xena warrior princesses and walked. There was a liger, there was a tiger of every color, basically, and tiger cubs, and then we do tiger cub photos. So
And
that's what we did there.
and Doc was pretty much present there the whole time, or did he come and go?
He came and went. It was another woman who was his main wife at the time, who's not there, and I'm not going to say her name because of that. She's reestablished her life and she's doing well, so we want her to be left alone. But yeah, she was managing things there at that time, and she was running the show. So yeah, and I didn't at that. Sorry,
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
at that fair, I basically took care of his daughter Tawny most of the time. Like that was my very first few months, and for the first few months, I just hung out with Tawny, his daughter, who was only 4 at the time, and she was great. She is great as far as I know. So
What was the environment there like? Was it a party atmosphere? Was it a I don't know, like a fun atmosphere?
um, at the Renaissance, I mean the Renaissance Fair is kind of like they work on the weekends and then they party the rest of the time. But not that's not the way Tigers was. It was you work when you're awake, and then but it was a little more relaxed when we were there, and I was just starting out. um so I did end up like making some friends there, which was great, but that ended up not being, Bhagavan wasn't happy about that by the time I left. He was kind of mad that I'd made friends with people, you know and that I wanted to hang out with them. So yeah.
When you call it tigers, that's different than how they reference it. So is that something that the employees called it when you worked for Doc? It was just called tiger.
When I worked for them, for the most part, it was called. It was an acronym, Tigers, TIGERS, that stood for the Institute of Greatly Endangered and Rare Species,
Okay.
and that's what it was called. I think now he calls it what, RSF, Preservation Station,
Mm-hmm.
all this other stuff, but that's what it was called to begin with.
So
Yeah.
so fast forward, you leave the Renaissance Fair and you go,
Mm-hmm.
you go back to Myrtle. Is that where you go?
Yeah, we went back to Myrtle Beach. Yeah, and then the real work began. We were taking care of more than just a handful of tigers. It was, a farm full of tigers, so a little different.
And what was your primary role when you went back?
Um, I started raising the tiger cubs, but also, I mean, at the beginning, it's just like the people who would just start. Sorry, I'm walking around because the bugs are bad out here
Oh
now.
no, you're fine.
Um,
It's fine.
the the primary thing I did was like clean up tiger crap, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and do maintenance and pull the meat from the freezer and defrost it and feed it out. And that was the first year. The first year I got there was the first year he did barefoot landing photos. So we would spend half of the day from like 5 onwards just taking cub photos at a outdoor shopping mall. Um, and then we would be home probably around 11:30 or midnight, and feed and clean and do all the stuff we needed to do, and in bed by 1 or so, and getting up at 8 to do it again. So, and that was every day. So,
When did it start to get awkward for you there?
I mean, I don't know if I would describe it as awkward. You know, it's not like he presented you with, um, I don't know. I guess the breast implants thing was kind of awkward because I thought I'd said no, and then they just kept bringing it up over and over again. Basically. Um, so yeah, I guess that was kind of awkward. Um,
And what was
yeah.
that like? I mean, you went through with that, right?
I did. Yep.
And was that something that Doc would constantly bring up? Like, okay, Barbara, we want you to do this because it's gonna. Was it more for him, or was it more for public perception that he thought that that's what the public wanted to see?
Yeah, it was for the public. I mean, he and I, like, I know that this wasn't conveyed specifically in the documentary, but he and I did not have a sexual relationship. Um, but yeah, so that was 100% for being attractive for shows. Um, so anyway, and I never really was that into doing shows. I guess I didn't do too many of them. I don't like speaking in public or anything like that. So um, yeah, but I did it anyway, and it was mainly like he said it the first time. I think when he was getting me dressed for the Renaissance Fair, in my like tiger's outfit, he made a comment like that I should get breast implants, and then he didn't bring it up again. But the woman that was his main wife at the time just kept bringing it up over and over and over and over again, to the point, and then she'd be like, "I made you an appointment just so you can see and you can talk to the surgeon." It's like no matter what I said, it was just kept going forward. Um, and she's like, "And I'm going to come with you and just say I'm your friend. Don't say we work together," like all this
Hmm.
stuff. Yeah. So, yeah, on the surface, it sure looks like I chose to do that. I paid for it. The
Yeah.
loan was in my name. Um, but I maintain I wasn't interested in getting them. As soon as I could, I got them undone. So I definitely did not want them.
So you
So
you paid for it yourself.
I did. I took out a loan. Well, she filled out the paperwork. She got the paperwork all squared away. I just signed my name and I paid for it with my $100 a week.
Hmm.
So it was like at ridiculous interest too, but I paid it off.
How were the other employees treated? I mean, were they held under the same microscope? Were there other procedures that he asked employees to get and then made them pay for it?
Um, Not really. I mean, I think there were 5 of us who got breast implants, so most employees didn't get, and the ones who started down that plastic surgery role, like they would get more and more and more. And I don't really know how that worked for them per se. But yeah, everybody was under a microscope for sure there. I mean, there was no privacy. There was, when we were always together and only with that one little group. That was it. So, yeah.
What was his relationship like with most of the other women? Like, was it almost like, was he sleeping with a lot of these women? I mean, you said there was none of that with you, but was
Mm-hmm.
was he abusing those relationships?
I mean, a couple of times, after when I got there, he was with 2 women. Um, and then another apprentice would come, and then all of a sudden he was with 3 of them, and then like another apprentice, and then okay, that one too. But I think he did once he had 4. I think that was enough for him. I don't think he's not like he's like a sex crazed fiend. I mean, he was doing it for, I don't know why he wanted, but it wasn't like he was constantly like trying to get women or anything like that. But it was just with those apprentices, that's how it worked out, you know. Um, and that was funny to watch, like their personality change kind of drastically. Getting there and being normal people, and then by the end of it, they're like in love with Bhagavan. It was kind of different to watch. So And they were all much younger than him too. You know, it's like in any other scenario, they would never have given him the time of day. But for suddenly, just in this one, it's like they're interested in him. I don't know.
They looked
Kind
up.
of funny,
They looked up to him. Would you say they looked up to him and they wanted to
right?
please him?
They did, and the women who are in a relationship with him are the managers. They're the leaders under him. You know, they're the kind of like the bosses other than him. You know, so that's attractive too in terms of like not just their job; it's their entire life is that place. You know, and if sleeping with him improves it, I mean, there's an incentive there to do that. You know, because they do get slightly better accommodations and things and more power over other people for sure once they're sleeping with him. So
And his wife was okay with that. His wife was just a part of this.
no, I mean she was definitely not okay with it. um, but eventually she was, you know, I think I think when I got there he had just started the relationship with the other person and she was furious about it. And she didn't like it at all, but once she got used to that, then it was kind of like with every new person involved there would be a big turmoil and there was constant little fights and stuff like that, but they basically, you know, accepted it for the most part, I'd say. But yeah.
Were they ever all together doing these, sharing these experiences, or was it Doc would pick one woman out at a time, or was there a night where they all just kind of got together and said, "We're
No, I mean I think they were mostly just you know, individual couple relationships.
okay"?
You know, they were all kind of kept, I mean we were always together. You know, they were in the same room together, they were doing the same things, doing the same jobs, making food together, just spending time together because that's what we were all always together. But in terms of like their personal relationship with Doc, it was they were basically four separate relationships there, not like a big group thing.
Did they all get along, or did they fight about who was going to spend time with Doc?
They definitely fought. um and some of them, you know, there, you know, over the years, like there would be like a year when one didn't like the other one, and you know, this one in particular, but was allies with this one in particular or something. But I'd say, well, all in all, they got along fairly well for the situation. I don't know, you know, now it seems like they're used to it. You know, it's been the same three for quite some time, so they've kind of gotten used to things pretty well. It seems like I'm not there anymore, but um, I'd say. But
Is there anybody else like you that has kind of come and gone and kind of decided this isn't the life I want to live, and
yeah,
you're in contact with them? I mean, you don't have to mention any names, of course. Um,
yeah, there are a lot. There are a few others. There are people who are speaking out. There was actually like three other people interviewed for the Tiger King that, and their interviews haven't been aired yet. So yeah, they were cut for time during the when Netflix acquired it, I guess. But
mhm.
there are other people that were backing me up on the, you know, on the actual show. Um, I'm disappointed that they didn't make the cut, and I hope that they get to tell their story eventually too. But then there's even more afterwards that have come forward too. Um, but yeah, most people didn't stay. You know, most people stayed a while and left. You
Mhm.
know, so
From what I understand, you were pretty happy with how you were portrayed in the Netflix series, correct?
I mean, yeah, I mean, it was quite a small amount of time, and I think that the filmmakers, you know, particularly Rebecca, um, made a good effort to understand what I was saying. You know, she talked to me, not just interviewing me, but talking to me on a personal level, like quite a bit. And so when she went to edit it, she really knew what I was saying, and she got it very. I mean, they had like 6 hours of footage of me,
Hmm.
and so that was a lot of editing down to get the real meat of the story. Of course, there was a lot more explanatory information that was needed to truly understand what I was saying that didn't get, but there's just no way to explain it all. So, yeah, I think it was fine
And
overall.
how do you think they portrayed Doc? I mean, do you think they portrayed him correct? I mean, because he kind of comes off as like almost like a cult leader in a way.
Yeah, I think they did I think they did a good job the way that they showed what he would say when he didn't know that they were filming him or didn't think that they would use that. I mean, that's how he always is with these different personalities all at once. I thought that was a smart way to present him. It was the most accurate way that probably he's ever been presented in the media. So yeah, I mean, I thought it was very much him on the show.
Well, if you ever talk to any of the other women and they want to come forward, I mean, by all means, let them know that they have a platform here, at least with our team. We'd be happy to get their story out if they really want to get it out. We'll do everything we can uh, to,
Okay.
to push that out.
Yeah,
Um,
it's women and it's men too. I know it looked like a bunch of a women's group, but that's really not accurate. There were women and men, but they face different problems. But yeah, sure, I'll pass that on.
how were the men treated? I mean, tell us a little bit about the men.
They were mostly just workhorses, just work all day long. You know, um, Not many of them changed their names, but some of them certainly did, especially in the earlier days. Um, yeah, mostly they were just working and working. I remember a guy, um, he was working so hard that he started to like just waste away. We thought he had cancer, but then it was just stress. It was just working so hard that he was like becoming like a skeleton.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, but yeah. Anyway,
Was Doc interested in any of the men in a sexual way, or was it just the women?
no, I would say no. He was not. I didn't see that. I mean, he's not. It's I know he's got been portrayed as this like sex cult god, and he certainly views women differently than most people would, I'd say. But
Mhm.
I think his I think his goal was to gain like to manipulate people more than to have sex partners, if that makes any sense.
Mhm.
That's just my interpretation based on what I saw. But um, yeah,
So it was about the control. He wanted
yeah,
to know that he had complete control. And instead of necessarily using sex as pleasure, he
right,
used sex as a control mechanism to control these women so that they would do pretty much whatever he wanted at the zoo or at
yeah.
Tigers, as you call it.
I would say that's the impression that I got for sure.
How would you say his animals are treated?
I think in terms of the overall picture of private zoos, I think his animals were treated fairly well while they were there. They had a lot of resources. It was a nice property. The cages. I mean, we worked nonstop, making sure that they had nice places to be. He changed where one was. Often changed their area so they could experience a new sights, sounds, and smells, as he likes to say. And they definitely had plenty of food. So overall, I think that it was okay. The problem is that they don't stay there. Most of them don't stay there. And I don't know where they go. And there sure are a lot of them. So I think that if there's a concern for the welfare of the animals there, it's just that a lot of animals pass through there and few of them stay. So,
How many animals would he have on property at any given time?
gosh, I mean, between the two properties, because he has one in Miami too, um, I'd say adult animals, God, I don't know, 50? I don't know. But then the cubs were constantly changing, and they were kept in a different area, different like a house adjacent to the property. Um, and so yeah, there's probably 12 to 15 there at any, you know, in the summertime for sure. Um, and those were constantly like because they grow so fast, they were moving out. By the time they're like 4 months old, they're too big to stay at that property, so they'd be in the main area, and there would be new cubs coming in to kind of replace them there. So yeah, it was a lot of cubs.
Were you ever scared working with the bigger cats?
Um, and only maybe a couple of times. But most of what I did was raise babies. Really, that was the thing
Hmm.
that I did, and that was from for the first year or so. Um, So by the time I stopped working them, they're probably 250 pounds or something. But you know, it's not like he just throws you in there. You work your way up and once you understand the body language of a tiger, they're it's not so scary as you'd think it would be.
That's what I found interesting. So when we interviewed Renke last night,
Mm-hmm.
he said um, basically working with these animals, you can very much pick out their vibe. Like you can see if they're
Yeah.
having a good day, you can see if they're having a bad day. And he said there's some days he would walk up to a cage and say, "I'm not going in that cage today because I can tell,
Mm-hmm.
this tiger's moody, just like a human would be."
Right. Yeah, there's a body language, like to the older cats, especially the male, real old, breeder males, where you can look in the back of their shoulders and like tell if they're fixing to like try to grab you or something like that.
Uh-huh.
But really, most of the cats you see, being walked around are younger. They're not the big older men anymore. A handful of the very beautiful ones, like Bob on Two or his Snow Whites, you see come out a lot. Um, but yeah, the younger tigers, before they really start breeding, they're pretty tractable overall, I'd say. Um, yeah, and those will come out and be happy basically anytime. Even a 3 or 4 year old tiger is pretty mellow overall compared to a lot of the other animals. Now lions were a different story. Wolves certainly, any of the social animals that was more complicated, but
Mhm.
tigers not so much.
And when these animals would just kind of disappear, did you notice anybody on property like scoping them out or talking with Doc, and like maybe it looked like they were making some deals like to sell these animals off?
I mean, it wasn't as clandestine as all that. I mean, people would come on property, and it was usually the same people, like Mario or this guy. We called his name is Lancelot. I think his last name might be Ramos or something like that.
Hmm.
They would come, and we knew they were going to come take our tigers, and we didn't see the paperwork or anything like that. Frequently, we knew, okay, we're going to give you this tiger, and we're going to get this tiger or this cat in return. But a lot of the times, he was just trying to make room on the property by getting them to take the cats off our hands, I think. And that was good enough for him. Um, yeah, so yeah, it wasn't so sneaky as all that, I'd say.
So
Um,
Joe was accused of, kind of taking tigers out back and basically shooting them when he felt that it was time to make room for the younger cubs. I mean, was there any of that going on with Doc, or do you think he just traded most of his animals?
I mean, maybe a couple of times you would come home and he would say, I mean, really, like a handful of times in 8 years, maybe I came home and he had put a tiger to sleep. I
Hmm.
mean, he'd usually say it was sick, but it really wasn't frequent. And I took it for granted that that cat really was sick. We certainly didn't have a crematorium on site. Like,
Yeah.
I think that might be a Joe rumor or something like that. Um, yeah. So yeah, for the most part, they were driven off alive. Um, I mean, because the people who would have been dealing with all those dead bodies would have been us. It wouldn't have been
Yeah.
Bhagavan. So we weren't doing that.
Did you ever go to his Miami facility at all?
Yeah, I lived there in like for 3 winters, I think. Yeah.
Was there a difference between the two facilities that you would say that stood out, or were they pretty much operated the same?
Yeah, Miami is like there's like a few cats that were being used for the show we did there,
Hmm.
um, but mostly it was Bern Levine's like orangutans that were kept there on site that he would breed for the entertainment industry. Um, so that was the majority of that space was devoted to that. So
Did you get to ride the big elephant that he so
yeah,
majestically rode in on in the video?
yeah, yeah, many times to the point where it was boring, you know. And I wouldn't, he rode the elephant down to the waterway so she could have a swim basically every day in the summer. And it was like anybody who wanted to jump on could jump on and go down there. But I usually was too tired and too lazy to want to go swimming with the elephant.
It seems like you put in a lot of hard work there. Was it mostly just the women and men that were part of his team that really had to carry the weight of these facilities, and Doc just kind of was there to be the showman, if you will? Would you?
Basically. Yeah, I mean, he was always on the phone, he was always setting something up or going someplace or meeting with somebody. But Um, yeah, and he would take, it was good to have him around because the elephant listened to him, and basically him alone. If she was doing something naughty, the best things to do is to yell, "Bhagavan!" and she would stop, because she would think he might be coming. Um, but yeah, it was mostly us doing all the work. I would say exclusively us doing all the work. So,
Did you ever witness anybody getting attacked by an animal? I mean, was there any close calls that were in the Tiger King? We all I think
mhm,
everybody fell in love with Saf. Saf was
mhm.
somebody that seemed like a very grounded person, and he obviously experienced probably one of the worst things that you can experience with losing a limb. Um,
Yeah.
did Doc ever experience anything like that at his zoos that you witnessed or that he had to deal with?
Um, I mean, not with the tigers necessarily. I mean, I got drugged through the woods a couple times by this one particular tiger who kept chasing rabbits, basically. Um, but I didn't see any real bad bites by tigers. No, but the things that would bite you there would be like little animals,
Hmm.
basically, or the chimpanzees maybe, or monkeys, that sort of thing. Um, the wolves, that sort of thing. So
And when you say drug through the woods, do you mean that literally? Like a tiger
yeah,
grabbed you and ran you through the woods?
no, yeah, like I was walking him in the woods on a leash. He was a younger tiger.
Okay.
I was actually Lakshman, my favorite tiger, um, and he kept dragging me through the woods. I'm not the toughest, sturdiest person in the world. I've got a high center of gravity, so yeah, he dragged me through the woods a few times.
Is there anything from the show that you feel they missed with you and Doc maybe in particular?
Um, I mean, there's probably a lot. I mean, there's a lot to go over there. Um, I think, like I said before, making it sound like it was just about getting women to sleep with him. I think that's an oversimplification. There's certainly a lot. I mean, I think they could have gotten into Bhagwan's background with yoga a lot more, and I find that to be kind of problematic at this point, in the way he interprets it and where he got his start at the ashram in Virginia. So, um, yeah, I mean, there's probably a lot more that could have been delved into, and they certainly could have talked a lot more about where the tigers go, where
Right.
the animals go, you know. So,
Was he part of the whole when you say yoga, I know
mm-hmm,
the one famous yogi, Bikram yoga, was known to be, he was very popular in the States. He came over here, made a lot of money, grew a
mm-hmm.
very large school, but turns out wasn't such a nice guy at the end of the day.
Yeah, it wasn't Bikram, but it was a guy named Swami Satchidananda who has an ashram in Virginia. Who did? He died. But yeah, that's Bhagavan's main man. His guru. So um, yeah, he's worth looking into. I'd say for sure.
Just not a nice person, or
Oh, I think he did this. He did. He had this ashram where everybody was utterly devoted to him, and I think you know that's worth looking into what happened there. You know what I
okay.
mean? I don't want to say too
Yeah, I
much,
don't want to put you
but
on the spot. I can tell, and it's something I got to look into now because I watched
mm-hmm,
the Bikram or special, and wow, I mean, that was definitely a cult like atmosphere, and I feel comfortable saying that because
mm-hmm,
it really was. It was almost like a pyramid scheme mixed in with sexual abuse and name calling and some very bad
mm-hmm.
things. So I'll check it out.
Okay,
I'll leave it at that.
yeah.
Did you ever have an opportunity? So the whole Tiger King, the interesting thing is, I feel like not your character. I hate saying your character because it's you. Um,
Mm-hmm,
the way you're portrayed on the show, you're kind of removed from the Joe aspect. They
yeah.
kind of, and the whole series is really about Joe. So did you ever
Mm-hmm.
have an opportunity to meet Joe at all?
I don't remember meeting Joe, and you think that you would remember meeting Joe, but
Sure.
they're all like that, really. I mean, he doesn't stand out in that crowd as much as he stands out on the television show. They're all kind of eccentric. I think I met that other guy. Um, what's his name? I can't remember the other guy who was like talked about training women because I remember him saying that over and over again and thinking that was hilarious.
Jeff?
Tim
Tim?
Stark. What's his
Yes.
name?
Tim Stark,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I think I remember that guy. Um, but really, we didn't talk to the guys. We didn't talk to these people so
Mhm.
much. So, and I know one of my friends does remember meeting Joe. Joe was a latecomer to the game. You know,
Okay.
he was he yeah, he was kind of a more recent addition to the Tiger game. So
Have you heard anything? I mean, when you were at Doc's place, you may have heard about the zoo in Oklahoma. Did you hear how that was run at all? I mean, did you get any sense of what was going on over there, or not really?
not really. I mean, the only other facility I was on regularly was Mario's place. Um, but yeah, and maybe a couple other ones that weren't mentioned in the show. But I've not, yeah, I don't remember too much about what they said about that. My kid is yelling. I think my husband's going to go help him.
Okay. I have two little ones myself, so I
Yeah.
know how that goes.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think of the documentary? I mean, do you think that? I mean, based on what you saw, I mean, obviously you don't know him personally. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
do you think that Joe should be spending 22 years in jail? What do you feel? I mean, just based off of what we all saw, I'm guessing that's what you saw.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, when I did have some experience, I guess, with Joe, talking to him. Like I don't remember, just some limited experience, and I would say that there that Joe probably does need to be in jail. Yeah. Um, I think maybe there needs to be a few more people in jail, but certainly he's where he belongs. You know, he did some bad stuff for sure.
What do you think? So, and you're not the first person to say this, and obviously, again, please don't name any names, or anything like that. But when you say
Mm-hmm.
other people deserve to be in jail, I would probably agree with you on
Mm-hmm.
that. What do you think their primary offense is? Is it abuse of the animals, or is it the shady underworld of trading these animals and nobody seems to know where they're going?
Yeah, I think it's both because I mean I think it is just a totally unobserved secret world, and when nobody's watching, anything that could happen is definitely happening, especially when you're considering who's involved. Um, and is that their fault? No, they're taking the opportunity to do what they want to do, but really, I mean, the people who should be watching them are not watching them, and that's the main problem. I mean, and that's a tragedy, and yeah, that needs to change.
And what do you know? Do you know anything about Carole? Like, so Carol's the villain in this. That
Mm-hmm. I
w-
mean, I've spoken to her a couple of times, you know, prior to this whole thing coming out.
mhm.
Um, I don't, I I feel bad for her having experienced the being part of just a tiny bit part of Tiger King was kind of overwhelming, and to have the world calling you a murderer. I don't know anything. I don't know any more than anybody else about what happened to her husband, but I think you know I think she should be treated like she's innocent until she's proven guilty. Just because, man, you know, it's like a public, you know, it's that seems like what she's gone through seems pretty harsh, but yeah. And Howard is very nice. Every conversation I've had, he's extremely helpful and a kind person. So yeah, I feel a little bad for Carole and Howard.
So saying that, I have to
Mm-hmm.
ask you because I have to ask everybody that comes on here. Do you think she did it? Do you think she murdered her husband, or would you rather just see that play out in public, in court or another
Yeah,
investigation? What are your thoughts?
I don't know any more than you do. I
Yeah.
have no idea really. I mean, yeah, I don't know any more than you do. I mean, she is a big cat person, and big cat people tend to be weird.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't know.
It's interesting because these people, like you said, they're very eccentric, and they
Mm-hmm.
tend to have a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
They tend to acquire a lot of wealth. And one of the interesting things that I thought from the story that I've mentioned this before is how she seemed to spend a lot of money going after people.
Mm-hmm.
But unless I'm missing something from my research, it doesn't seem like she spent a lot of money actually looking for her husband. You know,
Yeah.
so I kind of find that to be a little interesting. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but again, I'm kind of like you. Some of the people that we want to bring on here, You know, people have said, oh, well, you have to fry them and you got to ask them
Mm-hmm.
questions. And I'm kind of the person that believes, hey, everybody's nice enough to come on here and
Mm-hmm.
answer questions for us. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not putting anybody on the stand. As far as I know, these people are the nicest people in the world, and they're just portrayed differently on the Netflix show because, as you know, sometimes with our media and these reality
Mm-hmm.
TV shows, a lot of times they're not really reality. They will take clips and
Mm-hmm.
insert them in a certain way to create a vibe. You know, that's why I felt it was important to ask you if you felt
Mm-hmm.
you were portrayed, you know,
Right.
correctly.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that the documentarians were suspicious of Carole, and I think that that is definitely conveyed. I don't know if that suspicion is founded or not. You know what I mean? But
Uh-huh.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know for sure.
So, what was your tipping point? What made you say, "All right, this isn't I don't want to be under this roof anymore. I need to get away with this." What finally made Barbara say, I'm done with this?
Well, I think it was just having because I was in a relationship with my husband at that point, like where we were long distance. He was in Iowa and I was gone.
Why don't you set that down?
Here he is, right here.
Bye.
But um, he yeah, he was just somebody I could talk to that was outside, and I think that was really the tipping point is having somebody to talk to who wasn't in Tigers and talking about my day and having him kind of react in a normal way. Um, that kind of changed things for me a lot, you know, because I remember I got bitten by something, and Bhagavan always, you know, we didn't go to the doctor if we got bitten because he'd be like, they're gonna put the animal to sleep. Sorry, I'm walking inside now. And he was like, you know, his dad's a doctor, and he talked to me about like that's really dangerous, you know, because I got bitten and my finger wasn't working. That was the big thing. My finger wasn't working at all.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he's like, you know, I talked to my dad, and you need to go to the doctor. And if he's telling you not to go, he doesn't have your best interests at
Yeah.
heart because you need to go to the doctor. So maybe that was the tipping point because I was like, you know, really, he should be encouraging me to have use of my finger. You know, he shouldn't be protecting himself and his business because really that was it. You know, he didn't want any bites on his facility. That's why we didn't go to the doctor. So anyway, that was kind of the tipping point. Um, and yeah, just having another option that I was excited about. Um,
Did he pay
being
for that
married.
medical
So
visit, or was that something you had to pay for out of pocket?
at that point, he didn't pay me anything. He just had a credit card. That was a Tiger's credit card. So I did pay for that. He paid for it, but yeah, he wasn't paying me anything. Just that I had access to this credit card. So
Is there anything you miss
and
about
he
it?
made me promise that I would say I miss the people. I miss Rob Johnson, and really, you know, now I've kind of just resigned myself to the fact that I'm being outspoken against them, and they're going to hate me forever. That's kind of hard, especially with his kids, who I did spend a lot of time with, you know, and cared a lot about. Um, but I guess I just feel like if you have to live in the world of complete and total lies all the time, secrets, you're probably on the wrong side, and that's why I'm speaking out now, you know.
You're,
So
you're breaking up just a little bit. Your signal was a little bit better outside.
maybe plug in my battery, but um, maybe I'll go upstairs.
Okay, I'll give you a second.
Okay, is that better?
That is better. So, is there
Okay.
anything else you said? You know, you kind of have an opportunity now to speak out against some of this stuff. Is there anything else that you want to say that you know that wasn't brought to light?
Um, gosh, I mean, I don't know. I think the main thing I want now is that for people to support, you know, the Big Cat Public Safety Act and make sure that just support oversight. If it's not that act, like just be advocates saying, these people need to be watched. That's the only thing I really want people to to have as a takeaway from this. Yeah.
Is there anything you miss about it? Is there anything that
Uh,
keeps you awake at night? Like, man, I really miss this tiger, or I miss being around this environment.
no, not. I mean, I miss the people, and that's basically it. I cared about those people a lot. I care about those people a lot. I even care about Bhagavan. I don't wish him harm. Um, I just think he needs to be stopped. So that's the main thing. But at this point, I have no interest in being a tiger girl anymore. You know, I'm, I don't miss that at all.
Awesome. Well, listen,
Mm-hmm.
we've talked for almost 50 minutes here, and I really want to thank you very much for joining us on a Friday and taking the time out to talk to us. I know if you have little ones, so I know it's even taking 45 minutes is a very long time to be away from your family. So I appreciate that. I think I may have lost you. All right, Barbara, I don't know if you can hear me or not. I can't hear you any longer, and it appears that you're a little bit frozen, but I really did want to just say thank you very much for your time. You can reach out to us anytime if you ever want to call and talk again. So, Barbara, thank you. Thank you very much. Sorry, guys, that got cut off. I was going to end it. I was going to end it anyway. But I hope you all are having a nice weekend. We're trying to line up an interview with SAF going forward. We have a few others that we're going to line up. We are going to be changing our platform. We just didn't get it done tonight. YouTube requires 24-hour notice to do live stream. So the rest of our videos here on out will be moved over to our YouTube page. So if you could just please join our YouTube page, you can see the links in the Facebook page, and we'll continue to bring you out new content. We do have some ideas on how to keep the page fresh, and we might branch out here soon. That's just some things to keep in mind. So we're going to keep it interesting, and we're going to keep bringing people on to interview them. I assure you that. The team is doing an excellent job reaching out to these people, especially Lori Dry, Lindsay Hensley. They've been putting in the hours. They've been reaching out to these people, pounding the pavement. Really, I'm just the interview guy. They've been really putting in the work. They've been doing the behind the scenes things in order to get these interviews rolling. So I hope you all have a very awesome weekend. And I'll talk to you guys later. So I'm going to end the broadcast now. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Have a nice weekend.